Welcome to our next week's installment of Robotics Online. Today we're going to be talking about how to create a Russian Dolls program. That is, like, if you don't know what the Russian Dolls are, it's the little dolls where one opens and there's another one inside. So they're these nested dolls. So today we're going to talk about how to make that in a program. So let's get started. First thing to do is open a web browser and go to vex.vr.com. Or perhaps let's see, vr.vex.com. Okay, so the website we're looking for is vr.vex.com. I think I misspoke before. And what we're going to do is open up the playground. This week our playground is going to be not the grid map, but the art canvas. So I'm going to open up art canvas. We want just a slightly bigger place to work than what the grid map gives us. I'm going to expand mine. And let's get started. So the first thing you want to do, we're going to start in the very middle of the screen here. We're going to draw a small square and then program the robot to then make bigger squares from that point on. But we're going to do it using loops and variables instead of just programming it over and over again and putting the same blocks over and over again. We can create a really tight small amount of code so that it creates this complex pattern afterwards. So let's get started and let's get that done. So first thing is I'm going to try and start from the lower left hand corner of the square I'm going to draw, and I'm going to draw a square, trying to center it as well as I can right in the middle of the screen. So I'm going to draw a square, let's say, I don't know, it's 60 by 60 on either side, on each side. So I need to move my robot from the center. I need to move it to the left 30 and down 30. And that'll put me right at the bottom left hand corner of my square. And that'll get it roughly centered in the box. So let's do that. First of all, let's turn our velocities up so we're not wasting a bunch of time waiting for this thing to get started. So drive velocity and turn velocity both set to 100%. All right, awesome. That does that. And now again, I'm going to turn left 90 degrees, and then I'm going to drive forward. And I said I was going to do a box that's 60, so I need to go 30 over. So half that distance over. Whatever your starting number is fine for you to use as well. Play around with stuff. This may not be the right amount, but we'll see as we get started. And then I'm going to need to turn. This time I'm going to do a heading turn. And I want to turn to down. And the heading of down is 180 degrees. So I'm going to turn to 180 degrees, or south, if you want to think of it that way. And then I'm going to drive forward again for 30 millimeters. Because again, I want to be on that lower left-hand side of that box before I start drawing. And the last thing I want to do is get my robot facing the direction I'm going to go. So I'm going to be in the lower left-hand corner. I'm going to want to go across the screen this way. So I'm going to be wanting facing to the right, which means I need to turn to the right. So again, I'm going to choose a turn heading block in this case. This way, if I change some angles around and I don't do a box, I do like a triangle or a pentagon or something else, I don't have to figure out how much to turn. I just say, okay, turn and face east in this case, or to the right, which is turn to a heading of 90 degrees. So now I know I'm going to definitely be facing the right, no matter which way I started out. So let's see what that does. We'll hit play, and we'll watch our robot. Turns left, goes down, good. So it made a left-hand turn, it went over a little bit, down a little bit, made a right-hand turn, now it's ready to go. So now it's time to build our first box. Boxes are pretty easy to do. So we know we're going to make 4 sides, so we need a 4-time loop. So I'm going to grab this repeat 10 times and change it to 4 times. And we said we're going to make a 60 millimeter box. So we're going to do drive forward for 60 millimeters. We're going to turn left, and here I'm going to do a degree one instead of a heading one, because I might want to change this later and then figuring out the angle is easier than the well, no, that's not true. So the reason I'm using degrees here is because my next turn in my loop, if I say 90 and make it a heading, it will always turn back to the right every single time and not turn 90 the other way. So the only right way to do it this way is with degrees turn. So turn 90 degrees to the left. And then we need to repeat that 4 times. Let's see what happens. Turns left, turns down. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so the one thing we forget to do is turn the pin on. So yeah, that happens. We're going to put move robot pin down. And I'm going to set a color just because I think that's fun. And set pin color to, I don't know. I'm going to do something really cool and say green. All right, let's just do that again real quick and see what it looks like. So there, lower left-hand corner, now start drawing. Boom, boom, boom. So we've got our first of our nested doll program. Let me click over to here. Nope, can't see it very well there either. We have our first square done. Now we need to take our robot, which is facing to the right. We need to move it down to the left-hand corner of the next box, which is going to be over a little bit and down a little bit. So to do that, I want to come over here and say, I'm going to use a turn to heading for this one, because I want to be facing to the left, which is a heading of 270 degrees. Again, what this does is it guarantees that I turn all the way back to the left. And then I'm going to drive forward because I want my box to be bigger. And let's say we're going to make our box, I don't know, 100 bigger than the last box. So the first one was 60, this next one will be 160. So that means we need to go over 50 and down 50. And that'll make our next box, it'll get us in position at least. So turn heading 270, that's all the way back to the left. Now I'm going to drive forward for 50 because I want to make my box 100 bigger. So 50 bigger on each side. We're just taking care of this one side now. And then I want to here turn left. Because remember the 270 means I'll be facing to the left, to west here. And then if I turn left for 90 degrees, that'll make me go down. And then I can drive forward for 50 millimeters. And the reason I can use the degrees here without any problems is because I guaranteed I'm facing west at this point and I'm going left. So 90 degrees from that is always going to be south. So that's one reason I can click back to degrees here with confidence that nothing wrong will happen. Okay, so now that gets us back to the lower left-hand corner of the next box. So the next thing to do is then to draw another box. But why would I draw another box? I already have a box drawn here. So what I can do is I can loop back to that box. So I'm going to come down here and grab a repeat loop. And I actually want to draw 10 of these. So there's that. Now it'll repeat 10 times, drawing 10 boxes. Here's the problem though, is all the boxes will still be a 60 millimeter side. So now we need to define a variable because we want that variable to change every time we loop through. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to make a variable, and I'm going to call this, I don't know, distance, or maybe side length. That's better, side length. That's more descriptive. And I'm going to hit submit. Actually, before I go any further, let's do a few things to help ourselves later. So let's put a comment here. So this was turned to 270. So what that did is it got us facing left and then driving a little bit left to make the next box. So this is moving left for next box. Okay. Bigger the number. So bigger numbers move farther left. And let's say move each box farther left. And then let's put another one in, and put it here and say moving down for next box, and bigger numbers move each box down further. This way we know what these numbers do in the future when we forget, like, what do these numbers mean? So this means if I move this to 60, the next box will be start farther to the left than it would have otherwise. If I move it down to 20, it'll start farther to the right than it would have. So if I draw the second box that doesn't look quite right, I can shift it left or shift it right by using this number. If the second box is too high or too low compared to the first one, I can move it up or down using this number, and these two pieces of comments will help me remember that. Okay. All right. So now where were we? We were making a variable, and we made this variable called side length. Now, whenever we make a variable, we want to be able to define that variable and set its initial value. Otherwise, it sets out to 0 to start with. So we're going to set our variable. We're going to set our variable side length, and we want the first one to be 60, right? Boom, 60. And then we grab this and we put it wherever we want that 60. And we're like, right there is where we wanted that 60 at. Awesome. Okay. And yeah, that does it. So let's test this. Might as well. There's no harm in testing it. So we go here, boom, boom, boom. We get to our first square. We start drawing our first square. We leave our square. We go down to the new corner, and we start drawing another square. Here's the problem, though, is that when we do this, it's actually kind of a cool pattern. When we do this, it doesn't change the side length at all. It keeps it at that same small box, but just drawn farther down. We wanted to make our box 100 bigger than the previous one, and that's why we're getting all these weird little boxes. Also, one last thing we didn't do, I'm noticing, is in this last one, when we said turn left for 90 degrees, our robot will be facing down. We actually want to turn it back to the right to draw that same square. Because remember, on this first square, we started turning to a heading of 90 degrees. We need this one again down here. So let's come back up here, and let's grab a turn to heading 90 degrees. And that'll face us back to the right. We'll put it right there, and the last thing we do is face back to the right. And then we'll start drawing this. Let's try it again and just see what it does real quick. Now we're drawing the same box over and over again, and it's just going down at an angle because we're not, it's not getting bigger each time as well. So let's make that change. So to make this side length increase each time, what we need to do is put a change variable in. And where do we want that change variable? Well, we want it to happen right before the repeat happens in this case. So we're going to put that change variable down here at the bottom of this second loop. So let's throw that in there. Change my variable. I don't want to change it by 1. I want to change it. I think we said 100. Yep, because we moved down to the left and down 50 each. That means a change of 100, 50 on either side. All right, and let's see what that looks like. And oh, the other thing I noticed is we never took the pin up. So really, right here we want to be drawing, and here we don't. All this we want to just be getting in position for our next one. So let's move that pin up there. And this is the way it happens. Like you just go and see what it does, and you're like, oh, I forgot to do that, or I need to do this, and this is very typical of programming. You build a program, you try it out, and you're like, oh, that didn't quite work like I thought it would. Let's figure out how to fix it. All right, let's look at that. Boom, boom, boom. Nice. Oh, yep, there's a mistake. So we're drawing the same thing every time because I'm sure a lot of you at home noticed that I did not choose the correct variable here. I kept it on my variable. I need to say change side length by 100. Yep, and the rest of them are good. So let's reset that. Let's try that again. It is possible that I will get it right this time. Nice. Oh, finally. Look at that beauty. So this should repeat 10 times, creating a bigger square every time. And I did it with a pretty small amount of code here. So if you can imagine doing all of this and then repeating all of this and all of this 10 times all the way down the page, it can be pretty ridiculously long pretty quickly. You found out with the Maze Runner one for sure. All right, so now your challenge then. So I've helped you try to kind of figure out how to work with this stuff for building a square. You're going to do it for some other sided amount. So choose a triangle, choose a pentagon, choose a whatever you want. What you'll have to change is the amount of degrees for a turn. And all these degrees, this number, 90 degrees, times the number of sides that repeats here, this is going to give you 360 degrees every time. So if you want to do a three-sided one, so you want a 3, this times the angle has to be 360. So you can kind of figure out what angle to start with. And then if it's not quite there, you can mess around with it a little bit, but it will be because it's actually geometry, so that won't be an issue. It looks like everything's working out pretty well. So if I wanted to do let's say a 10-sided decagon, I would make this a 10 repeat, so I get 10 sides, and I would change this to 360 degrees divided by 10, which would be 36 degrees. Let's just run that real quick and see what happens. I'd have to play around with some more things just to make it look nice, but if we just run this code, just changing to 10, number of sides is 10, and then the angle is, oops, it's 36, not 360. Refresh, run that, let's see what happens. So again, it sets up a little bit down to the left, right, and now it makes, ooh, that's interesting. So the first shape was much bigger than what I was planning. And you can see just from this that I'm going to get out of control big. So I would need to change my side length, my starting side length, and my change side length. I have to change those numbers to make it look better. And notice how it's right now the second one is too high. I need to set, once I got the side lengths down and figured out, I would need to set the down 50 here. I would need to change that to a different number to make it kind of centered. The left-right looks pretty good. Just the up-down, I would be messing with the up-down one here. So you can see how you can just mess around. Ooh, that's not a good sign. He died. All right. Well, have fun with it. Get something together for me and get that thing submitted. I'm out. Have a nice day, and hopefully we'll see you. I have Friday open office hours from noon to 12:30. Last week we played charades. This week we might do the same, but stop in just to say hi or to ask questions if you want to. I will see you then, or I will see you next week on Monday with a new challenge. Have a great one. Bye.